Welcome, viewers. My name is Dr. Bidi Mutua. We shall continue our series of dissecting and demystifying research methodology. Today, we shall focus on measurement in research. I believe that if it cannot be measured, probably it does not exist. There are some fundamental questions we need to pose in the beginning of our discussion today. We need to ask ourselves, can concepts such as love, passion be measured? Can employees express love for the organization? And consequently, can managers be able to measure the love employees have to the organization? There could be better terms in human resource management to capture what we are calling quote unquote love of the organization from employees. We need to also pause and ask, when we talk about 0 degrees as far as temperature on Celsius scale is concerned, how is it different from when you get a mark in research methodology 0%? Does it mean that you don't know any research methodology? Does it mean when we say that there's 0 degrees Celsius, there is no temperature? Some writers have asked, if that situation is there, can we say that there is no warmth? At what point do we say that when there is 0 degrees on a temperature scale, then we can comfortably say that there is really no warmth there? If we talk about measurement, in research we are referring to how to quantify the variables that you're using in your thesis, in your research paper, or any other research aspect you are engaging in. I need to point early on that as a researcher, there is a need to define concepts and variables that you'll be using in your research work. And there are two ways of defining variables. One, we call it operationally definition of variables, which is essentially how the variables will be measured. But even before that, you need to define your variables conceptually or theoretically, which means that you have explained how your variables will be used, how the terms to represent variables will be used in your research work. Most books in research, they have a chapter on abstraction, conceptualization, and measurement of variables. As researchers attempt to measure variables that they are using in research work, they need to be aware of measurement scale. There's a question of posts when you are talking about the mark acquired in a research methodology test, profits of a company, just to post some examples, are all of them measured at the same scale. There must be a scale of measurement of the variables that someone is using. There are 4 types of or levels of measurement scale that can be adopted by researchers. The basic of all scales is known as nominal. In this scale, variables are measured in a way whereby there are distinct categories. For instance, the variable gender can be measured by use of male and female, 2 categories. Above that scale, we have the ordinal scale, and the ordinal scale is an improvement because apart from categorization of variables, there is ranking. Like for instance, if you are measuring a variable on the ordinal scale, you may adopt a 5-point Likert scale, which is a good example of the ordinal scale. Though there is a debate that has existed, some people will place the 5-point or 7-point scale on the ordinal scale. Others will argue it is an interval scale. But that is a debate that we shall talk about in our subsequent discussions, not today. Talking about the interval scale, this is the 3rd type of scale, which again is an improvement of the ordinal scale. The interval scale, you'll find that it has characteristics of not having a true zero. Temperature is a good example, measured on the Celsius scale, because we cannot argue that there is a true zero in this case. We cannot say that 0 degrees Celsius indicates that there is no warmth, there is no temperature. The most robust of all these scales you're talking about is the ratio scale. When we say that there is 0 kilograms, we mean that there is no weight. So, to answer one of the questions that we posed earlier on, what is the difference between 0 degrees Celsius and 0 kgs in weight? 0 degrees Celsius indicates that we are using a scale where there is no true zero. The zero there cannot be absolute because of what you have explained. But if we talk about weight, 0 kilograms, it means there is nothing. So we have a true zero. And one of the differences between the ratio scale and the interval scale is that the ratio scale has a true zero and the interval scale has no true zero. Consequently, the ratio scale is deemed to be the most robust of all scales. How do researchers choose a scale to use in measurement, it is affected by the variables, the type of variables that you have. Some variables can only be measured at the lower scales and consequently analyzed using non-parametric statistics. Ordinal scale and nominal scale. In this case, researchers will apply non-parametric statistics. Above that, the interval scale and the ratio scale can be measured using parametric statistics. There is a debate, almost a century-old debate, surrounding the use of parametric statistics on ordinal and nominal scales. But if this debate has persisted over such a long time, we cannot be able to fix it on a 20 minutes or so discussion. But at some point in time in our discussions, we shall give our thoughts and directions on the usage of parametric statistics and tests on the lower scales of measurement. Assuming you want to measure concepts like love, and my contention is that it can be measured, though not in the same way people are accustomed to measurement of variables. Assuming you want to measure such kind of a variable, what is your way forward as a researcher? Psychologists can do research on romantic love. They can conceptualize new concepts, new dimensions, new indicators to measure all these concepts. You need to be knowledgeable in the subject matter and in the variables that you are trying to measure. You need to have studied them. You need to have seen how these concepts have been measured, or attempts that have been made to measure the concepts and the variables before. Most likely, you are going to use the Likert scale because of the nature of the variables that you are dealing with. In this case, love is a variable. You need to go back in time and also in published literature and ask yourself, has this concept of variable been measured before? If the answer is yes, there is no point of reinventing the wheel. You can adopt measures and consequently items that have been used to measure love. Additionally, you can conceptualize your own measures by reading extensively what the concept entails and look at the elements and the indicators of the same concept. And we call that, designing your own measurement. You can also adapt. That is, use existing measures, but of course, custom tailoring to your research. If you adapt and you adopt, it is prudent for you to discuss and give credit to the people who have designed measurement of a certain variable. So researchers do not need to reinvent the wheel. They don't need to scratch their heads until some hair come from their heads. You can always look at measurement of variables in literature, in published literature. Have we discussed that? we need to turn our attention to the variables that you have discussed. Love, which you have already said, in most cases can be measured at the lower scales. Other variables, like for instance, if you want to measure profits, then you'll find that you need to use the highest scale possible. And this can be termed as a golden rule of the thumb if you are engaging in measurement. Measure variables at the highest scale possible. If you are measuring profits, we know that you need absolute figures. Measuring profits in terms of probably US dollars or any other currency in the jurisdiction of where you are doing the research. So it will not be good research practice for you to design measurement scales, Likert scale to measure profits, when we know that the best way would be to collect figures in terms of financial performance from companies, published literature in financial statements. From the discussion that we have had so far, then we realize that it is important for researchers to think about how they'll measure their variables in research, and also how these variables will be defined and used in the research process. In quite a number of instances, you'll find that researchers cannot explain how their variables were measured. And as I've already outlined, almost all variables are measured a bit in a different manner. You can conceptualize, you can be able to adapt or adopt measures used before by other researchers. The way you measure variables will also have a bearing on the design of data collection instruments and consequently on data analysis. Choice of statistics will be based on the level of measurement that you have chosen for your variables. So care must be taken in the design of question items where possible. Care must be taken on how data will be collected, because there must be that harmony, synergy, fit, all the way from measurement of the variables, operational definition, design of data collection methods, and choice of data analysis techniques or methods. The fundamental issue is, as a researcher, can you be able to select a measurement scale? Can you be able to apply that scale in your study? Can you be able to discuss how your variables have been measured? Because this is very important. Variables can be measured in quite a number of times in a different way, because some variables can be measured in one way. Temperature can be measured by use of degrees Celsius or Kelvin. In fact, 0 degrees Kelvin is a ratio scale. 0 degrees Celsius is an interval scale. So if we say 0 degrees Kelvin, it means that probably there's no warmth. And like if we talk about 0 degrees Celsius on the temperature scale, and argued before that some variables can be measured in more than one ways. If you look in published literature, and I'm sure you'll find papers talking about measurement of love, there are quite a number of ways that psychologists or researchers doing research in this area have used to measure some of these concepts. And this indicates that some variables can be defined in more than one way, which indicates that they don't have one definite measure but can be measured differently. If you decide to design a measurement tool for variables, then you need to be knowledgeable of the steps that can be used in designing a measurement scale or a tool to measure some concepts. And as you do that, you need to ensure that your scale is valid and your scale is reliable. Your scale gives us consistency measurements, and your scale measures the right thing, and there are statistical methods that can be used to ensure that there is validity and there is reliability in your scale. Cronbach alpha has been used in quite a number of papers to measure or to give an indication of the reliability aspect of scales. We also have factor analysis, confirmatory and exploratory, as two ways that can be used to check validity of scales. So when we talk about reliability and validity, it means that you are using the interval or the ordinal scale of measurement. If you're using variables in the ratio scale, then the question of reliability and validity do not arise. The last thing I would like us to focus on is dimensionality of scales that have been used to measure variables. Some scales are unidimensional, meaning that they have been measured in one dimension. Other scales are multi-dimensional, which means that they have two or more dimensions. In research, you'll find that dimension has always been confused with indicators. Dimension of variables indicates the different ways or the different meanings attached to a variable. So all these meanings we refer to them as dimensions. In published literature, employee commitment is one of the variables that has been used over and over again in researches touching on human resource management, whereby you have to establish the levels of commitment as far as your employees are concerned. There is a very popular paper by Allen and Mayer, originally 1999. They have revised the measurement as well of employee commitment in subsequent papers. But if you access that paper, then you'll find that conceptualized measurement of employee commitment in three different ways or meanings. Employee commitment might mean affective commitment, it might mean continuous commitment, it might mean normative commitment, and they have also come up with the scales to measure each and every dimension. Some people call dimensions indicators, but indicators are below dimensions. Those three I've mentioned are dimensions, not indicators, but the statements attributed to the measurement of each and every dimension can be called collectively indicators. And again, you'll find that researchers need to be aware of the hierarchy of some of these terms that deal with the measurement of variables and research concepts, from concepts to variables, dimensions, indicators. All that should make sense to researchers as they try to conceptualize, abstract, and measure variables in research. So the bottom line is that researchers can be able to use existing measurement scales. If I wanted to measure the commitment levels of my employees in a company, then I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I just need to look at how Allen and Mayer have used a measurement tool in designing these concepts. But as a parting shot, we need to note that not all variables can be measured by way of designing measurement items. Some of them, as we have argued in this discussion, are variables that can be measured in one definite way. If you want to measure kilograms of babies born at Pumwani Hospital in Nairobi for obvious medical reasons, then we know that kilograms will be used to do that, to measure that. There is no contention. There are no different ways of measuring variables at the ratio scale, such as weight, speed, and other aspects as well. As a parting shot, think about this. A small car moving at 80 kilometers per hour and the bus moving at 80 kilometers per hour. Which one is faster? Think about that. A kg of feathers and a kg of stones. Which one is heavier? Brainstorm and answer those two questions. And with that, we come to the end of our today's discussion on measurement of variables in research. Remember to subscribe so that you can get more videos, because we shall be doing them often. For now, goodbye.